All right. Well, welcome back to Always on the Hunt. Today, we have a special guest who's a true original in the AV world, not just because he builds incredible speakers. Noah Kaplan is the founder of Leon Speakers, a company that redefined what it means to blend performance, design, and artistry in the AV space. From the products they create to their one-of-a-kind trade show booths to their collaborations with artists and musicians, everything Leon does has an unmistakable creative fingerprint. Noah is also deeply committed to keeping things local, building in Michigan, while competitors go overseas, and giving back to the community through music and arts events. He's an artist, a business leader, a culture builder, and yes, a big University of Michigan fan, which I promise not to hold against you. Being a big Buckeye fan myself. So with all that being said, Noah, welcome to Always on the Hunt.
Leo, thanks for that amazing intro, and it's good to be here and good to see you.
Yeah, I'm happy to, being able to finally get you on, definitely a personality that I wanted to talk to and share with the listeners. Obviously you're pretty well known, but not everybody knows you, and hopefully my listeners will get to know you and know more about your incredible story. So, I got to start by asking, starting Leon Speakers, what were you thinking?
That's a big, nice, wide open, juicy question, Leo.
Right.
I would say back then we weren't thinking as much as we were doing work. So Leon was not called Leon when it started. It was basically a group of artists, musicians, and engineers, and a lot of people who were here at the University of Michigan. Kind of after I graduated from art school here, I had a commission with the University of Michigan to do a ton of portraits for the school of all these scholar athletes, which kept me in Michigan. We'd also started a band. So we had two houses in Ann Arbor right next to each other. There was 6 or 8 different artists and designers and honestly pretty eccentric people all living next to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Leon evolved pretty organically with me, and I had 2 business partners at that time. And I would say it took a really long time for Leon to actually be perceived as a company. unless
So you have this collective
artists. Yeah, it was a collective for sure.
Right. So you have the collective of all these artists, and you're like, all right. So at some point, you're like, we should get into the speaker business.
At some point, we're like, what are we going to build? So one of my old business partners, I had gone away to Australia at the time, and in the house I was living in, I got back and they had erected a 30-foot antenna on top of our house. And started a pirate radio station. And there is where we kind of set up and imagined that we would broadcast shows and live music from. And we set up a small wood shop in there. We thought maybe we'd build speakers. I was already doing commission art. I was getting art jobs already. All of us were also musicians. We were already playing at all the local spots. So, what do you do during the day?
Right. No, it's funny. Isn't it funny how many people in our industry are just musicians that had to figure out how to monetize their passion, right?
Absolutely. And I think, the music industry is tough like that. It's a night game. There's a lot of practice time, a lot of unpaid time. You need a lot of creative time to just think. For me, I love to work all the time. I'm always, I like to be working with my hands. I like to be thinking, writing, drawing, painting. So at that time, we also thought we could build something like guitars.
Mm-hmm.
We actually tried. It turns out, Leo, it's very difficult to build guitars.
They are.
We did it. We made electric guitar. We designed some acoustic guitars. But during that, because we were all recording, this is early days, 4-track recording, 8-track recording, all set up in the house. When we first tried to find a cool pair of studio monitors, that's when we kind of noticed the problem that was going on at that time. This is mid-90s.
Mm-hmm.
This is at the early entry of kind of mass commoditization, I would say, of a lot of different companies and products.
Right.
You still had super, really artistic products coming out up until about the 90s. And I'll never forget, on the early internet, as slow as it was, typing in studio monitors, speakers, and I could not believe it, but it would just be page after page of black rectangles.
Yeah.
And nothing that kind of I thought was interesting, artistic looking, and certainly things that we couldn't afford.
Right. Right.
So
I remember when B&W came out with those Nautilus speakers, right? Like they were just
Mhm,
pieces of art, right? And
completely.
yeah,
And just thinking differently about how, you know, speakers can look. What are they made of? We were asking these early questions when we were looking at it because I was doing wood carving at the time. I was doing a lot of woodworking, furniture making, furniture design, fresh out of design and art school. So I was
yeah,
just in that mind frame already.
yeah. What gave you the confidence though to do it in Michigan, right? Like like with so much stuff coming from overseas, and getting the production costs down, like you
There was such an amazing time back then, like of just really radical creativity, and we weren't thinking a lot. We were really into design. We didn't have social media all around us.
mhm,
What you did was you met a lot of people while we were designing. You'd meet another person. Like I remember when we met the first acoustician who really knew how to design transducers and speakers.
right,
He had studied under Amir Bose at MIT. He taught us a ton about crossover design, about how you make a speaker sound good, like about the components. And I remember just digging really deeply into that. So we weren't really thinking about cost or price at that time.
mhm,
We were really thinking about quality. And I think that's still core to the DNA. Um, I remember testing and buying so many speakers with the money I was making from art that, like after a certain time, I could almost pick them up and tell how they would sound based on what they were made of, you
right,
know?
sure,
And there's some serious advancements going on back then. We were working with parts, like we found the parts coming out of Germany from a company called Orca. We
mhm,
found amazing parts coming out of Focal. They had just really redesigned and re-engineered like what a modern speaker can be
right,
with this thing called the W cone speaker. And so I was like, got kind of obsessed with this. We were also all musicians, acoustic guitar and percussion, and we're all writing songs. So we were also kind of looking at the tonality of not only the parts, but like how are these things going to sound? How are they going to look?
yeah,
So just like guitars, if you think about like looking at a Fender versus a Gibson versus a PV or whatever it is,
right,
PRS, everything has a signature sound. And so we were really more in study mode for a long time before we got to even knowing how much it costs to make a speaker.
right,
I didn't go to business school.
yeah.
We were just trying to make something that was, like, beautiful, that sounded right, that felt right. Um, and I still think that's core to how we design and create today.
Right. So you're meeting all these great people, all getting out all these great information and knowledge from these people. I'm sure you also had a lot of doubters, right? Like people were like,
Oh,
"Come on, Noah, like this is crazy. Like don't do this."
Oh, I mean, I would say every especially then, I did not look like I look like now. I was in music mode, I had thick knotty dreadlocks, down my back. I was in more of an art mode. So when people started hearing about what we're doing, I don't think anybody took us very seriously for a long time.
Right.
Now, we were working extremely seriously with a big group of people, but at that time, again, it was a really good time for the arts. It was a really undistracted all day long, and it was kind of hysterical. Like, we were not taking ourselves very seriously, but when it came down to the work, like, to writing the song or to practicing music or to, like, figuring out what the best next piece we could build with for the speakers, like, that we were always serious about.
Right.
Um, but yeah, in terms of, like, people doubting us, I cannot tell you like, some of the times when we would go to New York City with some of our early products,
Mhm.
um, the responses we got were hysterical.
Right.
Well, especially
But
because
like,
one of the yeah, you know?
so like, first of all, I would love to hear what they are, but like, how did you react to it, and how did you have the confidence not to let it, squash your dream, but rather let it turn into fuel instead?
I think it's a good question. I think because I was an artist, primarily, and what I mean by I was an artist, I was a full-time professional artist. I was very lucky in that way. I got really big jobs, really big commissions right away out of school. Um,
Nice.
I was doing well like that. When this all the other stuff, I think I just not I didn't have an ego about the design or the speakers. I was more approaching it from curiosity. Um, And I think like staying pliable in that way was really easy at that time for me because, I wasn't super stuck on any singular thought I was having.
Mhm.
I was more discovering through talking to people, which still, like, even to this day when I go visit the dealers, go to industry shows, through the conversations is how I like to kind of absorb, react, think. I like to design out loud. I like to collaborate with people. So every single time I would more like, sometimes I straight up would crack up and be like, okay, I see you. Like, I remember when someone was talking about our packaging, not looking professional. I was like, oh, okay, I hear you. I see you. So I went home and I actually painted. I used to hand paint the boxes that the Leon speakers were delivered
Right.
in. It was just that kind of thing. So uh, I just I also really got into studying products and, seeing as I saw the things that were really well made, especially from companies from the distant past, like, RCA, Victrola, Zenith, Coco. I started seeing these type of products at vintage stores and seeing how much time and effort they put into things, starting in the 1920s, 30s, 40s.
Right.
And so I was always wondering, how did they do this? How are we so far away from there? And I still think that, I still look
Sure.
back at these, if you come to Leon Factory now, what they were able to do and the focus they had, and I think a lot of the craftsmanship and ingenuity was just remarkable from that era. But going into New York City, you get a big giant dose of realism.
Yep.
When you're 22 years old, 23 years old, coming in with a new design for a speaker, these
Right.
are really serious audio files I was dealing with. And I was a musician, so I'd be like, okay, I got you. Like, oh, that speaker's $40,000.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that's a little better than what I was
Right.
what we were paying.
Yeah.
But we were definitely net like our thing was always looking differently at it because I was coming at it more from an industrial design, a furniture design mode, wondering why are all these speakers rectangular? Why are they all so shiny? Why are they so gigantic? Why are they taking up so much rooms? There's so much complexity to it. Um, and I think at that time, even for us, it was too complex to even enjoy,
Yeah.
uh, as
But
young musicians.
yeah, and your artistic background, right? Being an artist, being a musician, that's really in the DNA of Leon as a company, right? Like
Mhm.
it spreads everywhere. How did you kind of, you know, how did you use your or blend your artistic background, not just into obviously the product design and packaging and stuff like that, but like the other elements of the company and the culture?
Art is y I'm as an artist, art is an approach to life to me, so it's a constant curiosity, it's a constant evolution, trying to always stay open and really my core philosophy is about doing the work to discover what the work is.
Hmm.
You know, even when you never know when you're gonna learn the next thing, that's gonna create a transition in your design or create the next breakthrough for your customers, Um, so the way art translates is the we are very vision and mission driven. So, everybody here knows that at the core of Leon, it's all about kind of exploring the intersection between art and audio and design with technology. But we also talk about here inside these walls about mixing business with bohemia.
Right.
And, the bohemian studio atmosphere here is the same as it is now, as it was almost 30 years ago. Every day we walk into complete chaos. Everybody's working so hard.
Right.
Today I was doing everything from trying to figure out how to stretch canvas to, like how to burn a certain kind of wood. We're thinking about Shishuggi bond finishes. It's the same. Talking to designers from the minute I got up today, dealing with really difficult interior architects and design,
Right.
having these intense conversations. But within all that modality is kind of there's so much room for discovery, and so we cover the walls, the halls, all the collections, all the art that we surround ourselves with is here to kind of inform the decisions we're making,
Hmm.
uh, and the ethos of the company is something that is it's you can't fake it,
Right.
so the value system of the company, one of the core values of Leon, the number one core value is creativity, but deep in the deeper part is really about authenticity too.
Right.
right? So like when we're designing a product, we're thinking about so many things, and the people around us are also very creative. And I think art also comes in many little other ways. Even if you're not a fine artist or a musician or a visual artist, everybody has a certain artistry to how they think,
Hmm.
you know? And that core collective, that group is powerful, just like a band is powerful, just like the Beatles became powerful by working together to create that song. Um, and this orchestra, all these sounds is the way that I still think today. So you can meet somebody that will change the entire way you think at any moment.
Sure.
Last year, we met an amazing design architecture firm, um, that we just connected with and thinking through their eyes. And like one of the things we learned was, why don't we just work with these architects to help design the products?
Right.
Why are we designing stuff for them when they are the core designers of the structures, right? And so you look back in history and you realize, wait, that's how products were designed.
Yeah.
Dieter Rams, Serinian, Charles and Ray Eames actually designed products for all the major electronics companies. That's how you got the mid-century consoles.
Mhm.
That's how you got the stylistic products. That's how you got cool cars.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's going on today anymore.
Well, it's cost. Everyone's just
It's cost, right? It's mass consumerism.
right.
It's the things that drive markets and money people.
I have a friend who's a big time architect. Used to work for Frank Gehry, and
Mm,
and like every big architect has a furniture line, right? Like they
yeah,
come out with their own furniture because like they're looking
yep,
for the furniture to match the buildings that they're building, and and it's their artistic expression that comes out too. And I feel like that's a lot of what you guys are doing at Leon. Is like taking your artistic creativity, putting it into your products, putting it in, but it's also in. I think there's also a culture aspect to
mm,
it, right? You mentioned the Bohemian like mindset and studio mindset, and the creativity that flows in the studio when everyone gets together and kind of just has that atmosphere.
yeah. I mean, we still, we have the Leon Loft upstairs in the factory. We record live shows for touring artists.
Yeah,
That happens during the day.
right.
Next week, I have a designer coming in from Switzerland. She's spectacular artist. She runs a company called Maison Tucani, and she's coming in and we're designing acoustic wall treatments that are handmade in Morocco in collaboration with her. She's coming,
Nice.
she's here. Like where when we're looking at new products or new designs, you really have to kind of come together, talk about it, look at it, imagine it, discover it, fight through it. Creative tension is real. We want that tension to be within the product's intentionality on top of that of like, okay, what are we actually going to do?
Yeah,
And it starts with conceptualizations. It comes from requests. It comes from customers. It comes from
sure.
something that inspired us.
And,
But yeah, it is the core currency here is absolutely a creative culture, you
right.
know?
But it's not just like, hey, let's be creative for the sake of creative. You guys are solving problems. Like, my introduction to Leon, um, obviously, like we met at that C Pro 100
Yeah.
event in Miami, had a great night,
Uh-huh.
right? We had a
That was
good
a
time
great
down
night.
there.
That was intense.
Anyways, but I remember that you guys were the ones that solved the speaker bar problem, right? That you guys were custom making speakers that were the right width, the right size, that matched the TVs, because everyone used to have those wide TVs and the little
Oh,
speaker bars, right? And
oh man.
right. But then you guys consistently are coming out with solutions that are driven by design and art and so forth.
Yeah. I mean, our first core products, after the studio monitor era, was when we were really just learning about like the science of speakers.
Mhm.
Then we moved into the design solutions for audio. And so when flat panel TVs came out, to me, I saw this as like, this is obviously going to be what's going to be happening forever. And what was going on at that time, well, people were putting gigantic speakers right next to the TVs. It was clutter.
Yeah.
There was way too much complexity. And when you look at it from just a clean design mind or designer's eye, you're just like, this is way too much stuff.
Hmm.
Way too many things to turn on, way too much to think about, way too many lines. So, the sound bar, and to me was just like, number one, the strange part about flat panel TVs at that time were they were a weird shape.
Yeah.
right? The aspect ratio was very different than old TVs. So the aspect ratio of an old TV was 3:4, which is like a classic kind of shape, a letterbox shape. And then a TV comes out and the aspect ratio is longer. It's 16:9.
Right.
It barely makes sense. There was really no like even film content that you can watch
Right.
at that time that fit on the screen. You
Right.
used to have to press stretch. So you just paid like 20 grand for a TV and you'd have to like stretch the picture.
Right. And everything was
But
distorted and weird.
yeah, but the way I was seeing it, was that that shape was kind of problematic. So, the early soundbars were really to try to transform that 69 visual aspect ratio into the golden ratio, of more of a 3:4, so,
Mm,
aspect ratio and, of course, people are watching television in their living spaces, right?
right.
They're watching some movies, but what you know about television is, like, how do you record television? Right? So it really isn't always recorded in just simple stereo mics on a TV. Maybe it's recorded in, at that time, 5.1. So
Right.
where do you put the center channel?
Yeah.
So these design solutions, just like any design solution, comes from trying to figure out like the core functionality and making that balanced. You want balanced, within the constructs of that whole system. Right, so how do we transform a television into a work of art is what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
And I am the first product we designed outside of flat panel speakers with art on them. Like, I thought the TV would be thin frame TV 25 years ago, but that didn't really happen. you know, to this day, it's still there's so many TVs that come out with so much complexity. But what I like to do at Leon is like, what is the simplest solution for this that will look visually the cleanest, but also perform the best for the job at hand, which is mostly like listening and watching television or enjoying time with the family or watching a movie in a living space. We want you to have a great experience with that. But we also want it to just look perfect and clean, because a lot of the homes we're all working on are really
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. And as a former integrator, we were always like under a lot of pressure not to mess up the aesthetics of the interior designer, right? Like we got to put all this electronics that are and make it look nice, right? So
Yeah, and I was like, where can we hide the speakers that is right where you want the sound to be coming from? So, like, we used to call this direct source audio at the same time. So, while the soundbar does visually work, it also was solving a bunch of actual problems with sound.
yeah.
Like, I still, you put speakers up in the ceiling above somebody's head or in disparate spaces, and like psychoacoustically, it feels like it's coming from the wrong space.
Well, a lot of these houses that we were in, we had 2-story family
20
rooms.
foot ceilings, yeah.
Yeah, you're not gonna put speakers all the way up there.
No. And of course, there's nothing wrong with ceiling speakers, but in terms of like um where you want to experience sound from, just like is
Mhm.
it just made more sense to us to keep it really tight to like your visual
Yeah.
space, um and as an artist, of course, I'm so glad where we are today, where we actually can have art instead of this big gigantic black rectangle,
Right.
like smacked up in the middle of these exquisite spaces, and then there's no frame on it
Right.
and it's sticking off the walls 6 or 8 inches, and it's silver, and it's glossy, and it's weird, and it's like
Yep.
to me, it was like throwing an appliance on the wall.
Yeah.
It was the opposite of design, and I could see why interior designers were really not getting along with the integrators.
No,
Uh,
no, there was always friction there, right? And
yeah,
products, such as yourself and like those motorized frames, with the
yeah,
art on it, like
yeah.
those were problem solvers. So, you guys obviously balance your artistic, expression, with the practical side of solving problems and also running a business. Like, how do you guys do that? Like, how do you balance that out?
It's been this last 5 years have been an epic challenge,
Hmm.
um, but I really feel up for that challenge. As the business scales up, we have a lot of craftspeople here, designers, engineers. A lot of our team has been here for 15 plus years.
Yeah.
So we kind of grew up together doing this. Um, but the creativity it takes from the other side of the team, just as soon as we're designing, now we're creating the bill of materials. Where are we getting all these parts? How are we going to make them? How do we optimize the supply chain?
Right.
You know, how do we become friends? How do we become and be the supply chain? Leon Speakers is just one step, in a global business.
Hmm.
It starts with amazing engineers, all over the world.
Yeah. Look, as an entrepreneur, like when I started my previous business and starting this
Yeah.
business, like, like I feel like there's like a little bit of artistic expression into it by designing, first of all, coming up with the business and the model and being creative
Yeah.
with it, and then the logo
Oh, yeah.
and the branding and all this stuff. So like,
I
when
love
you
that
think,
stuff.
what's that?
That's some of my favorite part of the
Yeah.
business, like, yeah, like,
The
what is
start,
this? What's the vibe of this brand?
right.
What are we about? What do we stand for?
Right. The startup and launch is always the most fun, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But how do you apply your artistic principle, or which artistic principles do you think you apply towards running your business? Not like
I mean,
obviously
that is a dramatically important question. Yeah. Like, almost every single thing I do with this company is the same like I was doing when I was painting. I think of the whole company as like kind of a sculpture or work in progress.
Mhm.
So, like if you change a principle or a design element in the business, like there's the sculpture changes. Like recently, like y we just started rethinking what are we going to be about in this next decade, right? So like, when you're thinking from a visual level, 3 years ago, I met an artist named Chris Saunders. I met him because I found the perfect lion that represented Leon, El Leon
Right.
brand. You know, um, the iconography of the brand. So when you come here, I painted a huge mural of the lion on the outside, but that lion represents austerity.
Hmm.
It represents a stoicism. It represents, like a quiet luxury that we're trying to portray. Um, but even when you choose a machine, I'm still very aesthetic. I want the most amazing machine.
Yeah.
I want to know that the artistry, that team was also as obsessed with artistry as we're obsessed with artistry. So um, even when we're thinking about the walls, the colors, the halls, what people are seeing, and even when it comes to financial models,
Right.
right? I don't want there better be color, there better be imagery, there better be photos, like, when it comes to how we're presenting the brand, especially to people, as you grow the business and as you attract different people, and I believe the higher the art, like, the better the gravitational force becomes,
How about
you know,
your
so
your whole organizational structure? Like,
Mhm.
and what creativity? Like, what do you guys do a little bit different than other people, or like what roles or positions have you guys created that maybe other companies, don't
Yeah.
don't necessarily focus on, but you guys have that on staff and so forth?
I mean, our staff is great. It's very intense, because we have a large number of engineers and then craftspeople in the same building.
Right.
Um, but I think that a lot of the people the most major difference is organization is filled with a lot of what we call polymaths, or people have a lot of different, very unique skills,
Hmm.
and that could mean that, the finance director is all just built her own ceramic studio, which is true.
Right.
That means, the product manager is also in two different bands. Like Mary, who manages all the New York and East Coast accounts, has, 3 to 5 bands that she's in.
Right. So.
So I think the DNA of it and the way we run the business, um, I got very lucky to meet a person named Gino Wickman
Hmm.
a long time
Yeah.
ago who created like this. Did you ever hear?
EOS. Yeah.
Yeah, EOS.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I didn't adopt EOS because I'm not big on business books or any of that.
Right.
But when I realized what Gina was talking about, like how do you run a vision-based business? Some of the hardest things is to create and imagine the vision for the business. And I think we've learned here, instead of writing traditional business plan, is like I like to walk through the visuals of what is it going to be like in 1,000 days here.
Nice.
And so the structure, I would say, has become more normal over the years because I can tell you right now, my first title here was C3PO, which was chairman of three partial owners. I had one business partner, we called him the OPM or the OPM or the operational product manager.
Right.
So like we didn't really take this very seriously for a long, long number of years. As the organization grew, now we're working for the most, Fortune 5 companies.
Right.
So we've
So,
become a lot prettier on paper.
yeah.
But the organization operates and functions almost identically to how it's always functioned.
But and you mentioned this in your hiring, that even like in financial roles, which normally would be non-creative, very
Yeah.
analytical type people, you have creative people basically in. So I'm assuming,
Yeah.
like as you're interviewing, you're talking to people, you're asking questions to see, if they do anything creative on the side, or like do you?
Yeah. We just, we core values are really important here. Creativity, optimism, and responsiveness. So like those are the three core things you need to survive at Leon every day, right? If you're creative and optimistic, to me, those are the two elements you have to have.
Mhm.
And creative, having a creative approach to financing might mean that she's looking at finance a little different. Not only is she our finance director, Linda, she worked for the IRS. So
Right.
she is an interesting polymath. She has both sides of her mind functioning all the time. She loves
Yeah.
crafts and she's really deep into the finance. And so she's a really good kind of, for me, a good balance.
Right.
And she's right across from me because it takes about 9 or 10 people to balance what I'm trying to do. Um, but we've learned over time that the best thing to do is really um, listen to each other, allow for that creativity to come through. And even when we're kind of fighting, to just know that what arena are we fighting in? We're
Right.
talking about creating a better experience. We're not here saving lives. We're here to create really beautiful products that last a lifetime, right? And we
Mhm.
and eventually, honestly, it becomes more about the people here that we serve and what we're able to do together. Um, that is far more important.
Sure. I
You
mean, look, that's my whole mission here, at Bird Dog, and especially with this
Yeah.
podcast. It's like I'm not sitting here talking to you about your speakers, or the
Right.
wattages or the ohms or this or that, because like to me, it's about the people of this industry
Yes.
matter so much more than the tech. And I always viewed that, we're just using this industry as a vehicle, to serve
Mhm.
people, to serve ourselves, to serve our families, so it's always, to me, it's always about the people.
And it's an incredibly creative industry. It is one of the most complex, misunderstood industries
Hmm.
ever,
Right.
right? I love that now we go in as technology designers. Like that's a big new thing.
Yeah.
We're not just AV people,
Right.
you know. Now we're understanding from the network on up, like what are we stacking on top of the network? Like not only do you have to make everything work, but we are definitely working on interior design.
Hmm.
Right? We're specifying things that are gonna be in your home and being used every day,
Yeah.
from television and audio, but now you're talking about shades and lighting and wellness and energy management
Right.
and security. I mean, and you're trying to make all these things work seamlessly, and that takes a really, really creative approach to make it feel effortless and seamless and make it feel like an actual luxury experience,
Right.
that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And
It's
look, and you guys have
awesome.
over the years, you guys obviously branched down into commercial and doing a lot on the commercial side as well. So, you're right. It's we touch how people, live,
Mhm.
at home, work, at,
Yep.
at work, and it matters. Look, Leon's become a big brand, right? Like you guys have done a great job branding. I think you've been a big part of your company's branding, right? As the founder, and I don't know too many people who know Leon that wouldn't know who you are, right? And as that founder, almost figurehead, almost mascot, of your brand.
Mhm.
Um, tell me about like how this brand, like obviously, we talked about the art and so forth, but like
Mhm.
as a founder, how did you make sure that the company's branding mirrored your you and your personality and your values?
Oh, I mean, I was born obsessed with this. And if you I wish you could be around me if you saw what I have around me right now. Because I have an insatiable desire to understand how we got to where we are.
Yeah.
Not only, as an industry, but as a brand. Um, I look back at some of these early brands and how incredibly well built they are.
Hmm.
Their iconography, their thoughts, their consistency, their quality. the way they imagine the world. You know, like you think about a brand like as old as Louis Vuitton from the late 1800s or Goyard from the 18, you know, like these are traveler gear makers that were, you know, they were sending people on the road on early steam train. Imagine this. Or the first televisions that came out, like I'm studying these things. I'm studying where RCA came from. I'm studying where Philco was born. I want to know how these things were made. So we're coming up with our brand. Me and my two brothers were my one brother who is now the CEO, Ethan,
Mhm.
you know, my right-hand person here at the
Right.
company, he had his own design company, and we were in a band together. My little brother, Dan, worked for major brands in design, you know, everyone from Gibson to GarageBand, you know, music startup stuff.
Mhm.
But all three of us really love to create, the brand ethos. And, you know, to maintain it and cultivate it and change it. And, you know, like we actually had a major breakthrough 2 weeks ago where, you know, all of a sudden you figure out like what you meant to say 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And you try things, you know, like one of our most successful things we ever worked on was the I Am Leon campaign,
Yeah.
you know, where we actually finished that campaign with Leon Russell, you know, who's an iconic singer songwriter. We got Leon Russell to be the last I Am Leon. But to us, like, our whole thing is about how do we embody this brand?
Yeah.
How do we create the legacy? Because within our core values spell the word cordial,
Mhm.
which, you know, a shape of a cup. Um, and the L stands for legacy.
Right.
So, like, those little details that you see on early brands, those unexpected little decisions, you know, like when you look at a Vox amplifier, you could see the iconography in your mind.
Mhm.
Know, when you look it what I know if you look at, you know, the iconic Fender
Right.
amplifiers, what do you see? You see that iconic tweed. You know, these decisions, so, like, we created our own Leon we call it our fabric is called the Check One too, you know, it's made a very specific way. The materials we choose to use, you know, American white oak and black walnut, and then what does the brand look like? The succinctness of the brand, and a lot of brand stuff is about what you don't see.
Yeah.
Right, thinking about what you're not seeing, so, like, the little square with the circle, which is the Leon logo, which we designed, you know, decades ago, that is a representation of the brand vision, which is all about balancing,
Yeah.
you know, design, and that we call that thing the, you know, that's the black frame full moon, you know, the full moon rising
Right.
in that black frame. So, yeah, we're obsessed with this, and it's fun.
Yeah.
We love to
But
make everything from, you know, the glasses all the way down to the products, you know?
right. Which is great, right? But I'm talking about you personally.
Oh, personally.
Yeah, you being the brand.
Oh,
Like when
yeah.
the person who I think of who's done this the best in our industry, Jeremy Burkhardt, right? With
Mhm.
Speedcraft and now Origin, and
Yeah,
Jeremy's a brand by himself,
absolutely.
right? I feel like you are too. Like I feel like you've
Thank
become a
thank you.
brand, right? And everyone knows Noah, and everyone knows your artistic side and your creativity and everything like that, and how much Leon reflects of
Yeah.
you, right?
Well, I mean, I think founders are, you know, fading and fleeting right
Mhm.
now. So, yeah, I feel like it's a core responsibility to be completely myself and to, like, you know, express myself in the exact way that I actually am, you know, not and that took a long time. You know, it took you know, I never changed how I was doing things, but I actually wasn't in the foreground until I realized, um, how much I had learned from people. You know, but I traveled the country now for I visited thousands of people over the years, and you take all these stories and all of a sudden you start realizing you could see the bigger picture.
Right.
You know, so when I'm landing in New York City, when I'm all the way in a small town, I'm carrying the ethos of thousands of conversations. And so, you know, all of those experiences kind of lead you to who you are today. Um, and so I personally, you know, I feel like sometimes I'm just barely getting started. You know, we did start the company from nothing.
Right.
You know, we really, you know, we were never struggling. We were always having fun because we were always had side hustles, but like it's hard. This is hard every day. And so for me, Noah, yeah, like you got to keep working. And I like to keep my mind open. I like to keep thinking, writing, learning, exploring, discovering, and bringing those things with me into the public. So now when I'm talking, even to you, I'm talking online, like I'm talking about the things that I've learned and, the things that created my inspirations. Um, because I like to pay homage to those people, those things. And eventually what you hope for is like, that becomes transcendent. That yes, I am this brand,
Right.
and it's important for me. And a lot of people talk about selling your company and which is fine. It's great. I'm just not the type. I'm here to be here for right now
Hmm.
as an artist, as a designer. Um, because I just see so much opportunity and every day here is intense.
Yeah.
Projects are coming in from everybody. It could be, a Fortune 5 company or it could be, a designer in a small town. They're both completely different and interesting and cool, you know?
Yeah.
So there's just a lot there, but me being kind of this person, the face, yeah, I want to get out there. I want to talk. I got a lot of people that I want to kind of awaken to, and our recent mantra that we came up with, which really is everything I personally stand for, was a big breakthrough for us recently. It was like we're changing for the next decade, like the way we go to market, and that's going to be all about awakening creativity.
Right. Good.
And even outside of Leon, to me, all the spaces we create, all the things, all the objects I wish you could see around me, I didn't realize for all this time, like, I love that discovery moment where you just like are like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I did not think like that. I didn't see that." And those are the moments I seek, that I search for.
Yeah. I love the awakening creativity. I think our
Like,
industry needs more of it. I would
I
add the word innovation because I feel like we stopped innovating a while ago.
yeah. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's so many innovative people, but um, I think as it became so complex, it's hard. It
Right.
became hard, and I respect the people of this industry a lot because they are some brilliant thinkers in our industry, and they deal with such you did it, Leo, I met you and you were doing this,
Yeah.
and you're dealing with these incredibly, successful customers, and really challenging, demanding
Yeah.
applications for technology, and so the funny thing is I think ultimately people don't wanna think about technology, we know that, right? But it's the year 2025.
Yeah.
It's time, and finally, everything is working pretty well, so I hope that all this technology just becomes different colors, in this new painting that we consider
Yeah.
technology,
Yeah.
you
No,
know?
we definitely have to get back to innovating,
Yeah.
and creativity and all those. And I think it's going to take creativity to innovate because we got to start thinking differently, especially with AI coming around the corner and all the other things
Oh,
that are going to happen to us. And
it's co it's coming, but, like, we're collaborating with Sony, like, we're this tiny company. Sony is one of our biggest collaborators, and they're incredibly think about what Sony Pictures has created over the years.
yeah,
I mean, it's insane, these companies, how much they do. You have Apple making incredible TV shows.
right,
Who'd ever expected that?
yeah,
That in this era, and so, like, we're at actually a time, it's like a complete cultural renaissance. AI is what is it seems like it's coming, but that is just like a big amalgamous soup of everything that's been generated by the creatives.
right.
Right, and it's
Yeah,
just stirring the pot,
eh,
and hopefully it becomes another tool like everything else does, you
yeah.
know?
And look, I think creativity is the future currency, right? Because
Yeah,
AI is going to do everything for us. We already have industrial automation to
yep,
do all the labor, and then
yep,
soon we're going to have AI to do all the thinking. So the only thing that's left going to be is to be creative, right? And
it
the
is.
creator. So
And like you right now, like, it's a great assistant for us.
mhm.
It will be a great assistant, I mean, I love yeah, I love the thought of, like, playing around with it and prompt and, like we talk about these prompts. I think that just like songwriting is like, what isn't a prompt?
Yeah,
Like you could if you could and I think you gotta train your mind to think similarly, how do you train yourself to try to think creatively?
right.
right? So like if you see something like, the most basic thing, this leaf or whatever right here, right? Well, what else can we think about? Is it just a leaf?
Right.
How to create? What's the infrastructure? What if that leaf was 600 feet long? What if, like what, just imagine different things
Yeah.
and allow yourself to imagine, allow strange thoughts to happen. And I think we become contained in our own architecture,
Right.
so like hopefully AI could kind of untame us a little bit,
A little bit.
or it might just become another construct. We're like, oh, let's just use it and maybe it'll get us there faster.
Right. Well, yeah, and tying it back to our industry and our space,
Yeah.
like I think you're right. Like we've grown from that startup phase, and now we're in that phase where like all right, we're under these constructs, right? This is
Hmm.
just the way it's been done before. This is just the way it's
Yeah.
been done, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully the creativity and the innovation come back, because like
Yeah.
I can only go to so many more trade shows and just see the same stuff over.
I mean, seriously, the reason why, like, you talk about, like, I mean, if you saw, wait till you see the trade show we're building right now. I used to roll out the Airstream and
Yeah,
drive
loved it.
67 Airstream across the country and like
Yeah,
build a mobile vision of what we're thinking about. And this year, we worked again with architects, like the iconography on the walls, like what we're dreaming of right now is really intense.
yeah,
And the collaborations we're doing are bizarrely out there, everything from working with fabrics to working with the highest technology in the world. So im- immensely diverse. So sometimes I'll go into a meeting. I'm like, wait, what are we talking about here?
yeah,
And we will dive so deep down. But a lot of the other technologies that are happening right now are in manufacturing. So AI is assisting a lot of manufacturing, especially for fabrication, for making
right.
things in a really amazing way. But here, if you came through these walls, like we are building an enormous amount of handmade product. And so, the respect I have for our teams here and all the people we work with and how hard the work is here every day, like this ain't nothing shy of art, and no AI
Yeah,
worries me at all.
right.
About
No,
we're gonna make things, whatever they may be, for the world, to have fun and to enjoy. Like this is life. And Leo, I don't know if you know this, but like we built the brewery on this campus. So we have a full scale bar that's open. Right.
I don't step foot on that campus, though.
And I know, man. I know it's not. I know. I have a lot of friends. We got this
Right,
rivalry going for a
right.
long time.
Yeah.
Um, and one day I'm gonna have you here for a
No,
beer.
anytime. But like, I think the game this year is at Michigan, right? So
It is. It is.
maybe
It's been.
I'll come up and
I'm
cover you.
telling you right now, we had an abysmal. There was a decade where I was like, I'm done with this rivalry. We lose.
2 decades, but it was
Maybe
kind of
1.5, Leo. All right.
all right.
But right now, I feel like we're kind of trending up. I don't know.
I don't know. It's been a rough 4 years, and last year it was on my birthday. By the way, the game was on my birthday,
Oh, that's a harsh.
we were supposed to go out to dinner, and I canceled everything. I was just like, you know,
This
and
is
look,
real. This rivalry is real.
yeah,
This is real. This
and
is real.
look. I'm a Cleveland fan, so I know all about heartbreak, right? Like I've lived through the drive, the fumble, the shot, all of it,
Oh,
the,
painful.
the decision, like you name it. Like losing to Michigan this year was the worst.
That was a tough. These were tough games, but I will say, from the entertainment value of those games, we
Yeah,
have been very blessed. Even though, yes, it favored Michigan,
right.
but those were real games. Those were battles.
They were. It was.
Sorry to get off topic,
Yeah,
but
we got off topic here a little.
we're off topic. It's fine.
Right, but all right. Let me circle back, because like
Yeah.
I feel like we were hitting a pretty good flow there, and this is what I love about you, and the way you present yourself and the way you've built your company, because it's so authentic, and it is you, right, and I know it's your team as well, but your team is a reflection of you as well. There's, like I said, there's founders that put themselves out there into the forefront. Steve Jobs did that famously. Elon Musk has done it. In our industry, Jeremy Burkhart and yourself.
Mhm.
I think that authenticity leads to more clients and more clients believing in the company
Yeah.
and staying with you, and wanting to work with companies that have these strong founders that are unafraid to put themselves out there.
Well, I think, when you think about a company, when you remove, the founder or the core designer or the core artistry, you can lose a lot of kind of the legacy of the business,
Mm,
all that history. And it could tend to fall into a numbers game or, hey, what was that one thing kind of thing. And so like it really, every day I come in here, you know, it lights me up to hear the sounds of Leon, you
right.
know.
Yeah.
Um, it's just born into you. And it's almost like we always some part of Leon, like we're sort of a pirate ship, sailing in really, really strange and deep waters
Right.
all the time. We're not financed by anybody. I don't have shareholders. I don't have, there's
Yeah.
no core investment that was ever made. We have a lot of financial freedom. And it's been probably the hardest 5 years imaginable here, where, we're crashing down to zero. We're
The,
going
the, the,
through
the last 5 years.
the last 5 years.
Yeah. You know,
But that's when you
can't,
really
you can't catch a break,
founder,
man.
it's been intense.
Yeah.
But really that's when you have to make a choice, like I'm here to serve those people and here to serve the industry that has served me.
Right.
Like people have been very gracious to accept who I am and who I want to be and what I want to bring. And as radical as some of the ideas have been, you know, I think people have accepted that it's okay to rethink things. Like I don't know if you remember when I brought out my first like radical sound sculpture piece of the
Yeah.
dragon,
Yeah.
when I was like, let's break all constructs. Let's let it go. But back to what you were saying before about that these should be reflections of self, like the Leon logo itself on every speaker that we put on, the last thing we hammer on, the Leon reflection logo, which, there's no word Leon on the speaker.
Hmm.
Small square logo with a circle in it that is mirror polished. And when we bang it on, like that mirror polished logo is supposed to be a reflection of self,
Right. Nice.
right? It's supposed to reflect you, reflect the space it is in. Um, and so it's a really good way for me to think every day about like, how are we allowing ourselves to come through in the business and how do we personally evolve?
Yeah.
I'm very committed to the evolution of art.
Yeah.
You know, I'm redoing my studio right now. I got rid of all this old stuff. I was like going through all my old canvases, like, oh my God, piles of stuff, Leo,
Yeah.
in my studio, which is on the campus. Um, and I was like, I had to let some of this go. I don't need to carry this anymore.
Right.
And that's why I love to still do live art at the events and why
Yeah.
I still like to get dirty at least once a week, and ruin stuff and paint pictures. And I can do that a lot more freely now because of what the industry has afforded me to do. You know,
Yeah. Look, really quick, and then we're gonna
yeah.
jump to kind of wrapping up
Let's wrap it up.
because we're running a little late. But
Yeah.
I do want to like touch one more aspect about this. Like in my last recording, I said like I'm like, look, this industry isn't, there aren't big egos. There's some big personalities, but there aren't
Yeah.
big egos, right? Or this industry's full of characters, not
It's full
egos,
of characters.
right? And I think the fact that you put yourself out there, in authentic and in a very authentic way, with your personality, obviously I think it helped. I think it led to a lot of your success and a lot of your growth. I think when people actually got it, yet, I feel like a lot of people are afraid to let,
Mm.
to show their personality. They always feel like they need to be buttoned up and proper and corporate or whatever.
I think what you're addressing is very real. Like, and you could look at it through any business lens, not just our industry. That like, I sit at a lot of the round tables still. I do 15 trade shows a year personally that I
Mhm.
go to. And I sit at the round tables and oftentimes I hear, oh, I don't want to make a website. I don't want to do Instagram. I don't want to do this. I don't want I'm like, what do you want to do?
Right.
I'm like, because people want to know you.
Yeah.
They want to know, ultimately, they want to know about who you are as a person, Kent. Are you reliable? Are you trustworthy? Are you fun? What are we bringing to the table here? and showing your personality is what kind of, why do your employees want to work for you?
Hmm.
You know, so when I start looking at that, I would go and I started realizing, wait, we're not just doing this to market stuff to people. This is life. This is all we have.
Right.
We have how many days on the planet? And that's one thing. I don't take many things seriously, but I take that reality very seriously. That, this is when our eyes are open. Like the Grateful Dead say, you wake up to find out that you are the eyes of the world. I mean, and so, I think putting yourself out there is a form of vulnerability that everybody can relate to. And so, I think that's a really modern reality to allow yourself to be vulnerable, to put yourself out there,
Yeah.
and really to kill your ego. Like I, curiosity is what keeps me open.
Yeah.
I'm not, I don't know. I know very little. What I do know, but I do have an approach,
Yeah.
and so, I think that I hope more people come to the industry. I don't think about competitors or what these people are making or any like. I think that it really has to do with how you relate your value system into the world in general.
Awesome. Um, any key takeaways? Anything you'd want to share with inspiring entrepreneurs or anyone who wanted to get into this space? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think my key takeaways from the conversation right now, because I like that you asked me a lot of questions that I don't usually talk about. Like what is my role in all this? Um, I think just like practicing a song or writing a song, like the song isn't just going to be great on the first day. If you're an artist, or people always, I hear them say like, I'm not an artist, I can't even draw a stick figure. I'm like, well, how many stick figures did you draw?
right.
Right. So do you think a football player was amazing on day one? So in business, um, I cannot believe how much more there is to learn, 10,000 days in. And so I think I want to show people that we can allow ourselves time to learn.
Yeah.
And, there's not a rush to get great or to be great. And, people say, oh, let's fake it till we make it. I don't really believe that. I believe like you work hard to gain little steps to become who you are going to be.
Right.
And that's never ending process. And that's part of the core principle of this business or really any business, like never ending improvement. Like,
Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah.
Uh, Little
Look,
things. It doesn't have to be massive things. It could be little things.
right. Look,
Uh,
success, in my mind has always been like it's the journey, right? It's not
yeah,
not the destination, but it's also like, hey, some people achieve it faster than others, but
yeah.
the only time that you don't achieve it is when you stop. Like if you keep going,
There you go.
you know,
There you go.
you,
That's better. That's more succinct.
yeah,
And I think you're right that the journey is really what attracts me. And it keeps me moving and it keeps me moving around the world and meeting incredible people. And I just want to thank you for time here,
yeah, man, for sure.
doing what you're doing because I know you're helping people find great people. Um, and that's really important. Your business does amazing work.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
yeah, it's been really good to see your journey too, Leo.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Well, I'm gonna wrap up with one last question because this is my
Yeah.
favorite question to ask and something I ask myself quite often. If you were gonna tell yourself from 25 years ago one thing, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
One thing that I would tell myself from that era, um, that I probably still have to tell myself now is to try to appreciate the moments as that you have that try to appreciate. I feel like you rush through successes,
Right.
and I'm not good at sitting with those successes.
Yeah.
I haven't been great. I always imagined myself taking a sabbatical. I think I'm gonna have to tell myself right now what I should have told myself when I'm 75, and I might not have still done that, which is um, to get perspective and take a step back
Hmm.
from it all, and to really appreciate the people you have around you at this very moment.
Yeah. That's great.
I can't believe some of the people I've lost and the
Yeah.
people I've met and the people I've gotten a chance to live with. I'm gonna have to think more about that question, Leo,
Yeah. No, it's good.
but I like leaving the question unanswered,
Yeah.
because I like being awakened creatively myself.
There you go. There you go. I'll let you sit and marinate on that one for a while.
Thank you.
Look, Noah, I appreciate you taking your time. Obviously, uh, you've done an incredible thing in our
Thank
industry. You've built an incredible brand, an incredible,
thank you.
incredible company. You've impacted a lot of people through your work, your art, your expression,
Thank you.
and everything. So, thanks again for joining us. And to the listeners, hey, if you're still here, thank you for sticking with us and listening. Hit that like, subscribe, share buttons, 5-star review, whatever. And until next week, good luck with all your hunts.